All right. Good morning, Dan. You're back from the South Pacific, man. It sounds like an awesome trip.
Yeah, it's been a couple days. I think I'm back in Mountain Standard Time mentally. I am caught up on my sleep, but it was well worth it. That 13-hour plane ride across the pond is a long one, but just an incredible experience. Just hit the rut perfectly. Red deer roar, everything that you could dream about when it comes to red deer hunting with a bow. We experienced it. So very fortunate, and it was an epic time.
Man, that's so cool. So we talk about that on today's podcast. I talk a bit about we're into spring bear season, so I talk about some of the adventures I'm going to embark on, and then like just a great conversation today. It's always good. We just pretty much hit record and talk bow hunting, and it really seems to get me fired up for season. We talked about big critters. We talked about hunting thick terrain. We talked about adapting and evolving, like just a bunch of good subject matter.
Yeah. It's the big thing for us is we hunt all these different species of animals to build the tools in our toolbox that really apply to Western big game. That's why we do it, and that's a large correlation that we talked about today on why we love to travel and hunt, internationally as well, not only domestically.
Yeah, and we also talked locally mule deer and elk and the adventures we have here in the States, and also like blue collar bow hunts, like the affordability of it. And then also, I think we spoke to like some of the beginners today, as well as the experienced guys, like just talking about what it takes to find success and what to expect when you're doing a DIY public land hunt. So, yeah, man, it's just great.
Yep, for sure. We just love doing hunts that anybody can do. And that's what it's all about for us. Western hunting, DIY hunting. 99% of the stuff that we do, anybody can do it if you want it bad enough. And so that's what drives us. And hopefully, you guys as listeners appreciate that as well. I have a feeling you will.
Yeah, it's a great recording. So just want to thank a sponsor and we'll get right into it. So we want to thank Eberly Stock Packs. So Eberly Stock Packs, we've been using them for quite a few years, and they just build a real durable pack that'll pack the weight right, and they have different models for different hunts. Of course, they have like general packs that'll you'll be able to cinch down and get tight to your back. But I run a couple different models, Dan. I really like the Kite Day Pack. They have their Kite 4800, which I've been using for longer trips. Been using I use like their battleship pack, like that one does good for longer trips and really holds the weight to my back. Which packs are you using, Dan?
Yeah. I do like the F1 mainframe. That's a great pack. I've used that one for a lot of years, and I like that one for elk hunting. Anything where I'm carrying a lot of weight is so important. I love that pack, but for these international trips and for day hunts, maybe deer hunts, antelope hunts, this new free fall pack from Eberly Stock, and this is the one that I brought to New Zealand as a day pack, as a carry on to the airplane. There's a 3,000 cubic inch and a 2,500, I believe. One's just a little bit bigger than the other one. It's a 2,000 and a 3,000, but they're packs that it's like the Kite, but it does have a tubular frame, which I do enjoy if I have to carry a little bit of meat. But once again, just highly functional pack that isn't going to break the bank either, but it does everything that I ask it to do. And that's what I love about all Eberly stock packs.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, and that mainframe too, that Vapor Series pack is really light, which I appreciate. You can get the 2,500, the 5,000, or the 7,500 cubic bag that'll fit on that mainframe. And I just like that I can get my pack weight down with a minimalist design, not a bunch of zippers or pockets or things. And I can get it down to around 4 pounds or so, which packs really good for me. So thanks to Eberly Stock for their support of the podcast. We really appreciate it. Over at Eastmans, we've got the Eastmans Bow Hunting Journals coming out. I have Sean Melland on the podcast on Eastman's Elevated, but he's on our cover of this issue. And then I think I wrote an article about execution. What do you have in there, Dan?
Yeah, MRS, kind of boring stuff this time. No, it's not. But at Montana Antelope MRS and the anchor point, we had fun with that. You got to write the last one, the last EBJ. Those are always fun. I had to go and look back, and the last time I wrote an anchor point was 2015. I dabbled in it a little bit, so it was fun to go back and check in on that one. And I even put an Easter egg in the anchor point. It's basically getting the elk collective and mule deer course for free. So if you have the magazine or you're a subscriber and you find the code in the anchor point, you can get those courses for basically free. And if you're not familiar with them, check out theelkcollective.com, and it's how to elk hunt from A to Z. And then the Eastmans online mule deer course, which can be found on our website. It's how to mule deer hunt from A to Z. Everything that you need to know to make the most out of your next mule deer hunt, it's there. And they're video driven courses, and they're great resources. Brian knows all about them too. He helped me build them. Well, the mule deer course, the elk collective it's a little bit different. Tons and tons of professionals from, and not professionals too, just good hunters from across the industry and across the lifestyle that are kind of contributors to the elk collective. So it's a very cool course as well, and very, very helpful. So yeah, make sure you check those out. What am I missing?
Yeah, just that elk collective. I've been walking my way through it. There's so many good tips from good hunters, like you're saying. And then, yeah, I've got like a segment in there and then plan to add some more to it as well. But yeah, I've really enjoyed walking my way through it and learned quite a bit about elk hunting. So even as seasoned hunters can learn from it as well. So yeah, the elk collective, check out Beyond the Grid. It's our internet TV show. So you can find that on YouTube on Eastman's Hunting TV. Yeah, just watched over that new edit on that mule deer hunt, the late season mule deer hunt. Man, I really like that edit. I think I really enjoyed it. I think it's just different than a lot of different mule deer hunts, being the snow and the cold, and then able to put like a lot of my tips and tactics about being mobile in there. So I enjoyed that one. That'll be coming out this year as well, so you can check that out.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for Beyond the Grid. Our new season is coming up. We're right in the middle of editing everything, so we're full court press on editing all our episodes. New season will start in July this year, so we got a couple months left. It's another exciting one. Big bulls, big bucks, great adventures. I filmed this red deer hunt in New Zealand as well, so that'll be a great episode for you international guys. But yeah, leave us comments. We're going to do some more Q&As here in the future. Tell us about your successes and failures, and that's ultimately what it's all about. We want to grow as bow hunters. We want to grow as people, and so we love hearing from you guys as well. So don't be afraid to send us questions, and we'll put some shout outs on social media platforms as well, Instagram, where you guys can easily engage on that. And what else? Anything else?
Yeah, well, we just want to make this podcast about the listeners and the information that you guys want to hear about. And so we really want to cater our content to that. So yeah, we're going to make a push on social media. You can follow Dan and I's personal page or the Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal page on Instagram. And also the reviews is a good way to reach us as well. So whether you're on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is, leave us a review there. I'm going to check them each and every week, and we're going to try to get to at least a couple questions every episode, and then put together some more of those question and answers to really cater this content to you guys. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that.
Beautiful. Yeah, sounds great. Life of a bow hunter. Here we go. I love it.
Yep. Sounds good. All right, let's get into it. Right.
It's quite the journey, as you know.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Yeah. It's such a long flight, huh? You watch 3-4 movies and you're only halfway there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, yeah, it's a few thousand miles or something, and I like look it up. Yeah, it's 8,000 miles over there.
Oh my gosh, it's so far. It's crazy, man. It looked like you had a great trip, huh?
Oh, dude, it was so fun. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
we just
hit
the timing so perfectly with the and estrus.
Really?
Yeah.
So the rut was just going off, huh?
It was as good as it can get. I mean, they have the stags and they have the hinds, and it's like, it's probably 50-50 stags and hinds. So like competition's high, and like a lot of these basins or canyons that we were hunting, there's like 5 stags in every one.
Oh man.
So yeah, there was not a shortage of targets, that's for sure.
Yeah, good for you guys. Yeah, that roar is pretty special too. It's just, I mean, I know they're similar to elk, but it's so different. Like you say, you're 8,000 miles away on the other side of planet Earth in the southern hemisphere, looking at different stars at night, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just feels so far away. And then chasing that roar in those canyons and any competition, man, it had to be amazing.
yeah. No, exactly it. And they're smart too. I mean, before we got there, they were culling hinds. They shot like 60 hinds in the month prior, and so I mean, even though they don't have natural predators, they couple of those rifles going off, well, several rifles going off, and they stay in the bush. They don't come out into the open during daylight hours. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, they talked quite a bit, but still it's amazing that, like, yeah, they get smart even with the little hunting pressure. They do not come out. It's like hunting, elk or deer over here. They get killed for sure.
Yeah, they are difficult. Like I found that they, definitely during that roar is like a good time to hunt them. But I did find that they are switched on. These different species that you hunt, like the sandbar, were incredibly switched on, and they're never hunted.
Yeah.
It was like those things would just bust me every way from Sunday. It's like and I think that challenge is like what's really fun too, is that it isn't easy. It is difficult. They are in the bush. I find that those red deer, it seems like they don't move quite like an elk moves. Like they like to roar from a smaller location, or they don't move country as much. But I did find that they are extremely switched on, and you can't get away with much. Did you like still hunting into them like elk using the roar? Were you calling a bunch or still hunting into them? And did you find that like a lot of times you'd bump them or move into them and they'd spot you?
Yeah, not really. I mean, we called a little bit, but once we got on one, we'd work our way in, and we'd roar at them and see what they were doing. But after 5 minutes of messing with them, like calling at them, whether you're roaring at them or hind calls, they're not coming. I mean, you knew they were locked down with a hind, and that was the case. I mean, we didn't. That's the one thing, is we did not like counter any stags that didn't have hinds. And it might have just been the luck of the draw or just peak estrus like it was, but they were roaring so much that we would just work in on them and get the wind and just move slow. And it was jungle, that thick jungle country, and so you had the cover. And at that point you're hunting the hinds. If the hinds see you, or you spook a hind, then the stag's going to be gone as well. And so yeah, we didn't bust any. We tried to play it slow, and the terrain was just so beautiful. It's so perfect there for spot and stock. So if you're just a little bit wise with how you're moving in on them, and you got the wind and going slow, and we did pretty good. There were a ton of them, so it's like I'm trying to think too. We did move in on a couple, and they were younger, so we left them. But other than that, yeah, we had a pretty good batting average moving in there and killing them. We killed 4 stags in 5 days, and a couple that we did. The boys there. It's a family that owns this sheep farm, and their boys are very avid hunters. And they're 19 and 21 now, and we hunted with them all days. They had rifles, and they kind of showed us their spots, and they went charging in a couple times. They hunt a little bit different over there. They're rifle hunting though too, and so they charge in and blow them down with a gun. And so there's a little less detail that you have to pay attention to when you're running with a gun. I guess they get within range, and any patch of hair they have, they fire. So yeah, we did that program for that one day there, and had some encounters, and we did spook a couple. But yeah, with a bow, and just me and Eva, or just me and one of the other guys, moving in. We stayed pretty effective, pretty high batting average on them.
It's really good. Yeah, it's you definitely want to be efficient, and that goes for like deer and elk as well. And it really takes a lifetime of building your skill set and improving to get to that
Yeah.
point, where you can do, and that's on elk included. It's like with the bow, I hunt them kind of that same way where, I love to hunt them in the openings and in the parks and in open terrain when I can. But a lot of times I'm like chasing bugles and I'm following them into the timber. And, sometimes it gets too thick or too brushy and there's cows where I opt to like, all right, I'm going to hold back. I know they're still calling in there, but I'll wait till evening when they're going to come out into a park and I can kind of keep eyes on them. And I run a pretty good batting average, the same as you, like moving in on them. And a lot of times I just don't catch up to them or calling, or I wait till evening. It's like if they're not calling and making noise, it makes it a lot more difficult to still hunt them in that thick stuff. But it is like a skill that you have to build, that you have to get better at it, like catching those things before they catch you. And also like being able to hear and judge how far and where to slow down and where to keep moving. It's a really fun skill set to develop, but at first it's a bit frustrating, especially like when I first started out with elk. I was really call heavy, and I hunted with my dad or hunted with buddies, and I ended up being the caller all the time. And it was like it was tough. They'd come in on pins and needles, or I couldn't call the herd bull in, and and then to try to hunt by myself and starting to target those herd bulls, I started to spot and stalk more with my bow. And, there was definitely some learning curves at getting the wind right, or moving in when I shouldn't be moving in, or maybe middle of the day. Like I don't hunt good middle of the day. I'd rather hunt mornings and evenings, and middle of the day, I'll kind of sit still or wait. But God, you just have to develop your skills. And we hunt similar and we have a lot in common, but we also have different tactics. Like you will kill a bull in the middle of the day or have some good middle of the days. You will call a little bit more if those bulls are fired up or by themselves or early in the season. But you almost just have to develop like your own skill set and your own tactics that kind of work for you, it seems like.
Yeah, no, that's a huge part of it. And that's ultimately why, or what drew me to red deer hunting, is the similarities to elk. And yeah, they are a different animal, and they make different noises, I guess. But when it comes down to the bare bones of it, they're doing the same thing. It's the rut, it's the estrus. They make noise, and they're driven to breed. And ultimately, that's what it's all about, is when you can get those repetitions in, like we've talked in the past, in April, a completely different time of the year. And it is like elk hunting. And I don't hunt terrain like this back home for elk that often. I mean, it's jungle, it's straight up jungle, and they're talking a lot. It was like the ideal situation because, like, as far as I'm concerned, elk hunting's harder, especially in this day and age and on public land. But these stags, they only had one or two hinds with them, and so you just don't have the eyeballs that you would have, usually over here in the States with a herd bull having 15 to maybe 50 cows. Makes it a little bit more difficult. But when you have this really thick terrain like the Pacific Northwest, and they're roaring hard, hard, hard with, one hind that they're on for estrus, I mean, those are the situations that are easy when it comes to comparing to elk hunting. But that's what's important, is you're getting the reps. It's so similar to what the tactics I would be using on elk here if I were hunting the jungle or the thick country. And ultimately that's what bow hunting is all about, right? Is getting repetitions in on, all the animals that you can, and then building the correlation from all these different types of animals, and then applying it to maybe what your favorite style of hunting is, or your favorite species to hunt is. And for us, it being Western big game or elk hunting, for me personally, I think that's where you can really learn, and you can really just accelerate the learning curve and accelerate your success rate by getting in those repetitions as much as you can throughout the year. I mean, this is full circle on what it's all about.
Yeah. And hunting that thick country, well, I know like my buddies in Australia, they were hunting stags. I was a little jealous that I just wasn't over there with those guys as they run such a good camp and such good spots to hunt and really mature stags. But um I know they don't see those stags for the rest of the year. It is like
Yeah.
just during the roar, just during the rut. In that thick country, like, I doubt you'd have nearly the success if they weren't calling like that. Being able to listen to them and locate them and know there's one there. And same with like, axis deer calling too. Like it gives you a real advantage. And so it's one of the benefits we have out west of being able to hunt that rut. And if you are hunting thicker country, if you are following those elk, like I even hunt open terrain, but they're high pressure elk where I have to follow them in the timber. And if they stop calling, like I don't have much of a chance. You just can't, elk cover so much ground that you can't still hunt, 10 square miles. Like you can only still hunt as you're getting close to them. Now, axis deer can be a bit different as they're higher populations, as you can still hunt through country, but it's still that rut, that noise they make, it gives you a way better chance at killing them. And so I think that's like when you're hunting thicker terrain or you're hunting, following them into the timber, it's like that rut gives us a major advantage bow hunting to where, for me hunting muleys, it's like, I almost got to have some open terrain where I can glass them and locate them and make a stalk into that. And not that I won't still hunt through something, but it's very rare I'm going to still hunt, and hunt 50 to 100 yards at a time like I used to in the Pacific Northwest for black-tailed deer and run into a good buck and then be able to get close and put an arrow in him. Like it can happen. You can get good at that style of hunting if that's what you have. But man, it's just like for me and in hunting high percentage chances, high percentage hunts, I have to be hunting the elk during the rut. And if I'm not hunting during the rut or the tail end or they're not rutting hard and I have to go to spot and stock tactics, I have to go to more open terrain. And I know those mule deer, when they get into secondary living after that alpine environment and get down more in the trees, instead of chasing them in there, what I do is I like bed them down and then I try to like estimate where they're going to come out in the evening into the park. And then I try to set myself inside striking distance or in an ambush spot where they come into that opening. Cause I just don't have much success following animals into the thick country when they're not calling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a no-brainer there. I mean, it gets tough when they're not calling. You got to have open country. You got to adjust your tactics, and yeah, when they're not calling, I mean, you kind of lose your options. It, like you said, ambush, sit water, or catch them in between bedding and feeding, cut them off after you spend some time watching them. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing too, is being out there and then analyzing the situation and then adjusting your tactic accordingly. Because yeah, I mean, if these stags weren't calling, and this is why I like this place where I'm hunting, and it's set up so beautifully for bow hunting. It has the terrain, it has the orientation of this mountain where it gets hit by the northeasterlies, which is the most common wind there that time of year. So the wind is just blasting right in your face. And this farm, they're right on the edge of the bush. And a long time ago, they cleared a lot of the timber. So they call it the grass. It's and and over there, you know, anybody can kill a deer in the grass, they say. But if you're out hunting in the jungle, that's what's exciting. That's what's fun, because in the grass you can see them from 300-400 yards away. You can shoot them with a rifle. They're mostly rifle hunting over there. But in the timber, in the bush, you're 30 yards. That's how close you need to get to even see one, and it's just more exciting that way. But that's why I love this place, because if they're not roaring, and in 2018 I didn't experience the peak of the rut, but they were rutting still pretty good. But that was my tactic, was that open country, and then cutting them off as they headed back to the bush to bed for the day. But man, your window's so small, and that's like the direct correlation to hunting western big game, is a lot of times on mule deer or elk, your window in the morning, if they're not calling, it can be very small, especially hunting public land when these bucks or bulls are really cagey. The more pressure that they see, the earlier they go in the morning and the later they come out at night. And so your window to catch them while they're on their feet is very, very short. And that's how I killed my stag there in 2018, was just that short window, catching them going from, the grass back to bed. And so as long as you're able to be, flexible, diverse on, your tactic, and being able to analyze that situation and realize, what your ace in the hole might be based on animal behavior, you're really going to propel your success rate forward for sure.
Yeah, it is about adapting. Like each
Yeah.
piece of country is different. And so, like I have still hunted quite a bit when I lived in the Pacific Northwest. I do, even in Montana or some of these other Western states when I'm hunting, like sometimes you have to adapt your tactics. And I remember hunting Australia for sandbar, and sandbar extremely difficult. And it was prior to the rut, and it was thick jungle like that. And I do know in that thick jungle of the Pacific Northwest or hunting these sandbar, like I could hunt more open terrain that was like a little bit more open timber or grass at the bottom. And I'd have better success hunting them on their feet than when they're bedded, just because they hide so good in their bed and they can hear everything coming. When they're on their feet, they're kind of moving. You can catch that movement and then make a play on them. But I know those sandbar, my buddy Josh, like his tactic is like you have to cover an immense amount of country in this timber. So you work like ridge lines and you're still hunting. I definitely hunt some of the more open terrain where I could glass 200 or 300 yards or maybe across the canyon and catch them, and then make like a classic, like, okay, I spotted them. Now I'm going to make a stalk. But I also know like the way he does it too is he really pays attention to tracks and fresh sign, and he'll hunt in cover country, and you will bust something every now and again, but you hunt, and then when you start running into fresh tracks, then you slow down and you really start still hunting, and then all of a sudden there'd be a sandbar there that you'd catch. And so I had to like kind of key into that. But I do know like in that thick terrain, hunting the more open stuff, hunting them on their feet, knowing when to slow down and really move slow, like all those things like really helped out. And you're right, as we're hunting higher pressure general season units, man, these elk, they just aren't in the openings as much or as long. And same thing with mule deer. There's a lot of guys hunting the high country ones, which throws them into secondary living way earlier. They shed their velvet, they get down, and they're in the timber a lot. And so I think the more we can kind of adapt our tactics for this, like the more success we're going to see. And especially on those older age class animals, like, man, they don't, let's look at the classic saying, like they don't get big when they're dumb, but they don't. Like in public land general season, like you don't get, especially like a lot of the spots I hunt in Montana, there's general rifle season for 5 weeks and a general bow season for 5 weeks. Like you don't kill a 7, 8, 9-year-old bull that's stupid, that's standing out in a park. It's like very rare that you catch them like that, so yeah, I think we have to continue to evolve and adapt our tactics for like these tougher to kill animals.
Yeah, and that's that's what I love about, these tougher to kill animals like you're describing, like the sandbar, or, axis deer is tough if they're not screaming. They're very tough, and that's, a lot of reason why we hunt them. And like sandbar, as far as I'm concerned, are probably the most difficult animal to hunt, excluding Africa, in the world, because during the rut they're not a vocal animal. They're a solitary animal. They don't have like a scream or a roar. They're silent, right? And so throw that out. So you can't hunt them like an elk, or a rutting axis deer, or a red stag, or a fallow deer. And for whatever reason, their vision and how switched on they are is insane. It's like an axis deer or a mouflon sheep. But once again, you pick these very hard animals to hunt, like a sandbar. If you get some reps in, some seasons in, whatever you want to call it, over in Australia hunting sandbar, it's going to make everything else seem easy. And ultimately, I mean, that's why I started hunting axis deer back in the day over in Hawaii. Is I wanted those repetitions, and I wanted to hunt an animal that was difficult, that would make elk hunting seem easy. and you're building all these correlations, and you're building your skill sets along the way. But that's what's so beneficial about it if you want to improve your skill set. And that's a cool thing with sandbar. And there's some guys over there that are really into sandbar, and that's kind of like what they specialize in, is sandbar hunting. And I mean, describe them, Brian. I've seen a couple. I haven't hunted them. I've seen a couple over there, but they're from Asia, and they're like the size of an elk, right? Like maybe a little smaller, and they have an antler configuration of like an axis deer, like a 3-point configuration, and they just get big. They're heavy horn. They can get really massive, and man, they're a beautiful animal too.
Yeah, they do look similar to an elk, and they actually live in the same habitat that like axis deer do. So axis deer are like our whitetail or mule deer, and then the sandbar is like our elk, at least that's the correlation. And so they're a bigger animal, like they'll run 400 to 600 pounds or so. And yeah, they have the 3-point configuration. They're really dark colored. So, like an elk, they do stick out, or they do show up with that dark coat on them. And then they really like the timber. They like the jungle. They like the security of that stuff. And they're a solitary animal. They run in small groups, as at least the hinds do, and then the stags during the rut. And they kind of have like rut pads that they'll make. They really key into like water sources and wallows and stuff, but really good eyesight. And then, man, my buddy Josh is like really good at hunting them. And it's amazing, man. There's like all this public land that you can go hunt for these things, but they're extremely difficult because of where you have to hunt them and because of the species, and it was frustrating at times as I'd be hunting, and man, I'd be walking for miles and climb up on these ridge lines and up. And then, I haven't seen a sandbar yet. And then all of a sudden I'd jump one that was in his bed, or I'd jump a couple that I didn't see because I didn't slow down at the right time when I saw the track. So it was like extremely frustrating because I really wanted to kill one. I had like a week to hunt them. But I really got in tune with that environment, started hunting more open terrain. Of course, my buddy Josh helps the learning curve because he's so good at hunting them. And, I'd go over encounters with him, and finally ended up arrowing like a younger stag, and I was just still hunting a rainy day and caught him up above me, and they didn't see me, and able to make a play and then put a perfect arrow into him and kill him or whatever. But yeah, it definitely makes me better at like chasing these elk in the timber. It makes me better at mule deer hunting, and it's frustrating and challenging, but really fun, like a really fun challenge to take on out there. So yeah, they're a really cool species. I like fell in love with hunting them for sure, and I'd love to get back and try to chase like a bigger, more mature stag. Like the one I killed was a fairly young one. It was a stag, and it was a sandbar. And like Josh said, he said, shoot any sandbar that you get close to because they're really difficult to kill with your bow. So I could kill anyone that I ran into, and was going to kill, a hind or a stag, or I can't remember if they're bucks or does or hinds or stags. I think they're stags and hinds, but yeah, I was going to kill a hind or a stag or anything that I ran into. But yeah, it was a pretty fun challenge, man.
And what's cool about it is, if you get linked up with the right guys, or I mean, these hunts they're fairly inexpensive. The probably the largest expense, I mean, for this New Zealand trip was airfare. And depending on when you buy your ticket, $1,700, $1,600 to $2,000 is what it's going to cost for a round trip over there, which is an expense. That's not a crazy amount of money, but man, you can kind of tailor a hunt to your budget over there too, and get this incredible experience at an odd time of year. But anybody can do it. The amount of public land that's over there in Australia and New Zealand is pretty incredible. I mean, compared to the States, percentage wise of public versus private, it's comparable. But in Australia, you have to be with a hunter, right? You can't just go hunt by yourself, if I remember right.
I think it depends on the state or the territory that you're in, for sure. Yeah, I don't, but you can in New Zealand. There are places that you can go, and then too, it is an expense. It is traveling, it's nice. Those guys love to hunt elk and hunt mule deer too. And so, if you can make a connection in nowadays with social media and things and get somebody to host you over there, like I stayed at my buddies' houses and, went to their camp, able to learn from them. And then those guys, like one of my Australia buddies, Drew, Montana this year is coming over. And so, we'll help him with logistics and coolers and place to be and vehicle. And so, it just, not that we're trading back and forth, but we just help each other out with the logistics of it. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And then, I just think like the States, there are still like great opportunity here for mule deer and elk, and now bear season just opened up, where you can load up your truck. You can have an out of state tag for $300-400 or $1,000 for an elk, but you can really do these adventures. If you can get time off work and you can plan these adventures, you can gain the same hunting experience, or like that, you can really sharpen your skills by doing that. And I love that big travel, and I love international, I love Hawaii, but even you look at Alaska, like the cost of it, I did it in 2016, a float trip for moose or whatever. And, I think I had like $6,000 into it. And it was all self-guided. Like we got all our own equipment. What you have to pay for is the flights out, and so you could probably do it cheaper, but I've just found that a lot of the roads and population centers, all the locals are hunting in there. So it's higher pressure. You have less chance to kill a moose. And so I had $6,000 into it, and I would have had 9 if I killed a moose. Now I have been able to do those caribou, like the haul road and things, it was about $3,000 back in the day, or I could actually do it for about 2,500. It might be up a little bit with inflation and gas prices and everything up there. The haul road gets you good for gas, but you can still put together one of those trips. But yeah, you're going to have the same money or more to go do Alaska than you would to go do one of these international hunts. And then, I really love the States hunts, the antelope, the mule deer, the elk. I think there's whitetail opportunities out there. And it's just like continue to search the Coues deer down in the southern desert during the rut. There's a lot of places to gain experience in the States where you can have your truck and all your gear and really improve your skill set of bow hunting, which gives you a better chance for whatever species you love, whether that's deer, elk, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money if you don't want it to. I mean, if you're a blue collar guy, or maybe you're in between jobs, or I mean, you can. This is attainable for anybody to save up for. If you want to do it, if you want to do it bad enough, you set your mind to it, and you're like, man, I really want to do this. This is attainable, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing these hunts is I like doing hunts that anybody can go do. I'm not, gifted financially where I'm going to go buy, a hunt somewhere and nothing else matters. Logistics, I leave that to the outfitter or a guide to worry about. This is all stuff that I can do, that you can do. And, you're doing it yourself. I mean, bottom line, that's what it is, doing it yourself, and with a little hard work and drive, and you can get it done and really build that skill set. So that's what I really enjoy doing. And guys should message in. I want to hear about any hunts or trips that you've done, and maybe you failed. We've all been there. We failed at some, didn't come home with anything, or maybe you hit the gold mine and you harvested, you had a great successful trip. But we don't always harvest on our DIY trips. Brian, you went moose hunting, didn't get a moose. I mean, that's hunting. That's just the way it goes. But I love hearing feedback from guys that have that drive, and they have that gumption to go get after it themselves, and see what you're made of. That's another reason why I do it too. Go test yourself, see what you're made of. And I love hearing the success stories, and I love hearing the failures, because it's what makes us better bow hunters. It's what makes us better people. And ultimately, that's what it's all about. That's what the lifestyle is all about.
Yeah, and we go on a hunt, and we don't do it every time or anything, but you start to learn when you kill some big bucks and some that the fun's really in the journey and in the adventure and like in the planning. And I've been, tags came out, in New Mexico and in Montana, and I haven't drawn any good tags, but I'm putting together a pretty good season this year, and I'm starting to get some tags where I'm starting to look at the maps and get excited and start to put pins and start to work on my logistics. But really the fun is in the journey. And I hear from guys that want to kill their first elk or want to kill their first mule deer, and realize too that, if you really want to kill a mule deer or bull, you probably like, especially if you're out east or you don't have a lot of experience, like the easiest way is to pay a guide or outfitter or pay that big ticket price and get your elk and have them on the wall. But if you do it yourself and you want to learn and improve your skill set and get better, like realize it might be a multi-year journey. Like I just heard from a guy that's trying to kill his first elk, and he had like 6 close encounters last year and he messed up on some and he learned from it. So, now this year he's training harder. He's already working on his bow. He's starting to map research. Like it is a journey. And so when you set these goals of trying to kill whatever it is, and we have like these amazing adventures that we can do out west in the mountains for elk, or the high country for mule deer is like a super extreme terrain that you can go hunt, the antelopes or the prairies. But just realize that, it doesn't come easy. It may seem like it on social media, or it may seem like it when you follow guys that have been bow hunting for 25 years and put their life into it, that it seems like, God, those guys kill good bulls every year, good bucks. But that's not the norm. Like the norm is you're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to learn the country. You're going to have to put an immense amount of effort into it. But you have like this passion for it or this love for it where the work kind of comes easy. And then, after you put in your years of learning this place or years of building your skill, like you will arrow a critter, and then, you can try to do that the next year. You're going to follow it up. You're going to have success, but just realize like it's a long game. It's not a short game, and enjoy the journey along the way. Like the killing a great buck isn't going to make you love bow hunting. It's like you have to have a love for the game or the love for the challenge, and be willing to put in the work, and realizing that you may have success this season, but it may take you a handful of seasons to really get your skill set to a level and your knowledge of the country to a level, where you do harvest an animal. And that's just like the truth of the matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a time thing, bottom line. Yeah. And there's no shortcuts if you want to do it yourself. You got to put in the time, and that's just the nature of it. We live in a weird realm though. Like whether you want to call it a sport or a lifestyle, let's just call it a sport. Bow hunting's a sport. Most sports, like, you have to put in the work if you want to get good, and if you want to be proficient, you have to. But hunting, there are shortcuts. There are. It's just the fact of the matter. There are shortcuts. You bust out the checkbook, and there are shortcuts. And will those, paying for a hunt and going on a guided hunt, will those build knowledge and a skill set and make you a better hunter? Yeah, they will.
Mhm.
Of course they will, because it's experience. It's hunting. But it might even be the option for you just first starting off. Maybe you do have the funds, and maybe you don't have the experience. It's a good way to gain experience quick. Having a mentor basically is what it is. But for guys that are doing it DIY, bottom line, there's no shortcuts. And if you want to get proficient at it, and especially over time, and maybe that's really, what the point of this is here, is that over time, if you want to be consistent, there are no shortcuts. I mean, you can't buy your way into it. Maybe you can. I mean, if you do it year after year after year after year for a decade or two. But even if you are paying for hunts, which is fine, hunting is hunting, and we need to all stick together. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But you will learn, and you will gain knowledge by paying for hunts, and that's a fine and dandy way of doing it. But just, for the guys that maybe don't have the funds to do it, don't get down in the dumps, because it is possible. You can earn your way to success as well. So that's the beautiful thing. And we all got to stick together too. I don't want to sound like I'm talking down on guys that are paying for hunts.
Mhm.
That's not what I'm saying. But it's just an interesting realm that we live in as hunters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not my path or yours, or we really like putting in the work and not that, you can work really hard and like you say, have the funds and you pay for an experience and you get to go hunt the best places on planet, or you get to go hunt some private land and you get to use the knowledge of the guide and the outfitter, and you're going to gain an immense amount of experience in a short amount of time, And so, yeah, that is a good way to learn from those guys, to have success, to be able to hunt the best places. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely don't look down on it, and it is definitely a path. But like you say, it's a bit of a shortcut when we're do-it-yourself guys, where we may have 5 years into getting that same experience, or into learning a unit, or into being successful. So it's definitely a tougher path to do it the way we're doing, but it is possible. And I just had Sean Mellon. So he's on our cover for the Bowhunting Journal this issue, and just had him on Eastman's Elevator. I'm going to release the podcast next week. I really enjoyed it. So he was a NFL football player. He played in a small school in college. He grew up in North Dakota, small school, tough to get noticed. But this guy, just from his like his sports psychology, just from his work ethic, like, he was able to make it to the NFL as a linebacker, which was crazy, right? And so then it didn't work out. He played in a different league and then went on to a different career. But he had this great base of hunting North Dakota and hunting mule deer and whitetails in North Dakota, kind of spot and stalk in that open terrain. And he fell in love with elk. Like, this guy loves elk. I don't even think he hunts anything else, just hunts elk, right? So he moved to Montana 10 years ago. And he's just put everything into it like it's his NFL career. Like, he doesn't know any other way to do it. So he came down to the house and we did a podcast. He got out his workout and then shot his bow, and then he went and ran sprints before he got down. Like, the guy just works tirelessly at elk. And then, like, the deal is he works really hard scouting and cataloging these bulls and backup plans, and all of these bulls have came from Montana. But he's at 7 out of 8 years, he's killed 375 plus inch bulls on public land, do it yourself. Just amazing. And 2 over 390. So he's cataloging these bulls. He's really working on his execution, like his shot process. It just made for like this really interesting podcast. And, it's like, I've become a good elk hunter. And Dan, you're a really good elk hunter, and you do kill big bulls every single year. But it was a bit motivational for me to see a guy that's almost working harder at his elk hunting than I am, and to look at it and go, oh, he's scouting the winter range, and oh, he's scouting all summer long, and he's scouting the units he's going to hunt and also the units he's not going to hunt. He's cataloging these bulls to try to find these next level bulls that are going 375 plus or even 400 inches. And 7 out of 8 years being able to kill a 375 plus inch bull, and he's only been hunting elk for 10 years. And it was a bit like motivational for me. It was a bit like, and I have a bunch of different irons in the fire, and, we all have jobs and family and work, but it's like, I'm hunting a lot of different species. I love mule deer and I love hunting elk and antelope and traveling and stuff. But, it almost lit a fire under me, like, there's another level to this game, and this guy has found it, and it's almost like I can, it motivated me to want to put more work in and to want to search for some of these giant next level bulls, because I think the opportunity is still out there. But it's a really good podcast, man. We got to get him on this podcast and have a conversation with him, man. It'd be really cool. You'd get along with him good.
Yeah, no, sounds amazing for sure. I saw his bull on the cover when we sent this magazine to print, but yeah, he's definitely a killer. It's funny, in the world of bow hunting, you get guys that are some guys, like you say, only hunt elk, or they might only hunt mule deer, and then you get guys like us, we're hunting everything, anything that's brown, we're gonna go hunt it. And it's just the beauty that of the lifestyle that we live. And we can learn stuff from guys like that, guys that are just, mule deer only or one species only, because that's what they spend all their effort into. And yeah, I admire guys like that for sure, putting in that work and the time and effort, and especially to be able to find those caliber of bulls on, public land or in Montana. I don't know if he's hunting public or private, but even just to find those bulls is very difficult in this day and age. Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, you have these specialists, right, that put all their effort
Yeah.
into those species or whatever. And I think he's hunting public, which is impressive. And then I had like a Marlon Holden on this week on the podcast that I just released today that came out. That's a mule deer specialist, and he's killing some amazing bucks. Which is and turning up some big next level ones. And so, yeah, I think we can learn from these guys. And like, me and you do like to bow hunt everything, and everybody has different goals and different needs. Like to me, I still like, I love being able to chase 320-inch bulls, get me excited. A big mature 6-point, and to me, a 350 is a giant bull. It just made me realize that there are levels and there are guys that are putting in the work and finding these giant ones consistently. You included, like you give me a ton of inspiration, man. The bulls that you put down the last handful of seasons, like and you love hunting elk and you put a ton into it. Your timing spot on. You built your skill sets to where you're consistently successful. Like, it's inspirational to me to know that that's possible out there, because a 350 bull to me is a giant, and to watch you do it year after year is incredible, And I think, I think of mule deer. Like, I love hunting mule deer in all these different habitats, and I've harvested some great bucks. But there too, it's like, there's levels to this. And I think if I put more effort in my scouting, if I put more effort into these spots, like, I think there's some big bucks that are possible for me. And you also have to be able to hold out. And I love making plays on animals that get me excited. And a lot of the fun for me is making stalks and plays and trying to hold it together and make a good shot. And I'm doing what I absolutely love. And I'm really proud at the animals that I'm able to produce consistently year after year. But it just reminds me that there is no limit to how good we can get. And I just want to continue to improve and be a student of the game. And I'm more driven now than I ever have been. Just knowing that it's possible and having this inspiration and also building on the skill set that I've already built. Like, there's a ton of opportunities, and I just can't wait for the fall to like embark on some new adventures, new goals, and really put all my effort into scouting and e-scouting and have the time to make these hunts. And it's just really exciting to know we have another fall coming up.
Yeah, no, that's what it's all about. That's a huge part of hunting and the anticipation. And one of my friends that drew an elk tag last year in Wyoming, he's 70 years old and he never killed an elk. And for him, he told me this multiple times. He's a gear prepper. He's a gear nut, and he's actually an ex-Olympian. He was a Nordic skier in the 80s. But for him, like the most exciting part of it is in the prep and the anticipation. And yeah, like I told him, I was like 100%. I mean, that's a huge part of it, is the anticipation of the hunt. I mean, we get to think about this 4.5 more months until, September. And it seems like forever, but in reality, it's a blink of an eye. But that's what makes it a large part of it, what makes it exciting, is the anticipation and the prep and going over your gear. And it was really fun watching him be so excited for it and going over his gear. And he'd call me at like 6:30 in the morning, and he's like, yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these tents, and he's like, this one weighs this much and this one weighs that much. And he's going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And so it was exciting to see his excitement, and it gets you fired up for hunting season for sure. And we had a great hunt, and he killed his first bull, and just a fairy tale ending. But yeah, it really gave me that perspective of, it's not necessarily the end goal, but it's the journey, it's the adventure. Don't lose focus on that. And that's kind of the way I've been with elk the last, several years here, is, man, it's the adventure and the process that I'm looking for. It's not necessarily, a specific number on a bull, as my end goal. Yeah, I want to kill a nice big mature bull. And usually 350 is the magical mark. That's a big bull, but it's how you do it. And that's what drove me on this New Zealand hunt too. It's the process. It's how it's all laid out and how you're hunting. And it's very, very affordable. And this family, like and that might be a big reason of it too. Like the nostalgia of, this sheep farmer and his boys, and they're all hunters, and he raised them hunting. And I can build that connection with them because that's how I was raised as well. And they live all the way on the other side of the world. And, I was raised the same way, hunting with my dad and my brother. And so building that connection right there, that's what makes it special to me, is hunting with these guys on their place, back behind their place, is just the environment, the people, right? And the people are what really make it. You can travel all the way on the other side of the world hunting, and the people, hunters, we're all wired the same. The guys that are doing it for the right reasons, we're all wired the same. And I was having a conversation with my uncle. This is kind of a rabbit trail, but I was having a conversation with my uncle when I was sitting in Denver at the airport. And he said, Dan, would you ever like travel anywhere and not hunt? And I'm sitting there thinking about it. And I've thought about this before. And it's like, honestly, I have zero interest to travel somewhere and not hunt. And it's not just because of the hunting, but I feel like when you travel somewhere and there's all these new things and new people, you really get to experience another country to a much deeper level and a much more intimate depth when you're hunting. And that's weird to say, but to experience the woods, to be in tune with nature, the environment that you're hunting in, and then the people that you're hunting with, it's a closer relationship than, going on, some touristy cave tour or whatever. I'm just, coming up with an example. And then you get to experience the wildlife up close, firsthand, hands-on top of that. And then to the next level, you get a feast on the wildlife of this foreign country that you're visiting. Like, I can't imagine it any other way. That's like the type of experience that I love. Now, disclaimer, like I would love to go to Europe and like Normandy and World War II. I love history. So I would go places that, it wouldn't be like a hunting destination for me, but I would be trying to plan in a caribou hunt to Norway or something close by if I went over there. You can guarantee that. But it really made me think about like, would I go visit a country if I wasn't hunting? But it's like, it's wired into us. It's built into us. Like that's what drives us. And that's what really visit a country, go there and go hunting, right? Like that's what gets me fired up.
Yeah, it's the best, dude. It's such an immersive experience. And we do have so many similarities. It's wild. Like, that guys can grow up on the other side of the world, and you have so many similarities, and you get together, and it's like the best of friends, and so much in common as well. So it is. It's like it's really fun. Now, I do some trips with my girls that want to go sit on beaches, and I do, I'm usually trying to mix in a hunt or a fish or something. I like to be active. I will travel for fishing. I love to experience that as well. That's another love of mine. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's like there's nothing like it. You just really get such a feel for the place you're traveling towards, and such a love for it too. It's like so unique. Like I love the feeling of getting to hunt a new species. I get so much excitement and anticipation and so much enjoyment, like out of trying to learn a new species or a new challenge. And yeah, man, there's nothing like it, so yeah, it's really fun. And like you say, I don't need to kill a 375 bull to be a happy bow hunter. Like I hope to do it someday in my life, but I love bow hunting. I love the adventure, and some of those big critters, they definitely motivate me to get out on my runs, to shoot my bow, to, put in my map research. Like, it just drives me because I know that opportunity is out there. But in the end, I could never kill another, book animal or whatever, and I'm a happy man. Like, I love chasing mature animals that are challenging for me, but a lot of the places I hunt, they're not known for world records, or they're not known for giant bucks. And that's kind of some of the opportunity that we get as do-it-yourselfers when we want to bow hunt every year. Like, you're not going to have an opportunity to kill a giant bull in every unit or a giant buck in every unit. But you know what? Like, I love it just the same. I love a big prairie mule deer that's going to go 165 inches, that's 6 or 7 years old with heavy horns. Like, I'll chase that till the day I die and be a happy man, But so it is just fun. It's like it's just great that we found what we truly love to do and put our effort into it. And I really think like having that passion in our lives, it just makes me have like a happy, fulfilled life, And so, yeah, I'm really fortunate to have that and to have found that. And yeah, I just couldn't be happier or more thrilled for this hunting season, or more thrilled planning things. It keeps me working hard on the job site, keeps me working hard with my family to spend time. And right now, my girls, like, they'll come hunting with me, and definitely my younger daughter, she likes an adventure hunt, but she's so busy with sports and school and things. But sports is a great place for them to learn some of these same life lessons, about teamwork and hard work and dedication. And you have successes and then you have failures. It's like my daughter's been playing on the varsity team, and she's had a tough time hitting off some of those varsity pitchers. That softball, the mound's so close and that pitch comes so fast, and she's a good little hitter, and she's put in her work at the batting cages and on JV. She's finally got this varsity spot, but it's been tough for her, but she's finally starting to come around and lay down some of those good bunts as a leadoff batter, and starting to make some good contact and have some good at bats. And, she's going to get it. And it's teaching her like a lot of these lessons, and she's having fun doing it. And so, like, I really encourage it and try to support her. It doesn't have to be bow hunting. It just is for you and I.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many good things out there that can, teach a child or lead a person into, building that determination and effort, and really being able to, you put the time in and it's going to pay off, and becoming better people. I mean, that's what it's all about. And yeah, I think I gravitated towards hunting, not only because I was raised in it, but it started with like an infatuation for nature. Like, looking back to the roots, or my foundation of why I went down the hunting route. There's many reasons, but as a child, like, just completely enthralled by nature and movement and antlers and animals and bears, and just like an animal lover. And that might sound weird to maybe a non-hunter, or maybe even an anti-hunter, is that, for a foundation for a hunter is like, I know a lot of us, I could probably speak for you on this too. Like, we're animal lovers. Like, this is what, really drives us and really is interesting to us, is animal habits and behavior, all the different species. And so it's a different background than what some people might think as an end result of being a bow hunter, is being completely obsessed with nature and the natural world. And hence why, we love fishing, we love backpacking, we love doing all these things outdoors. But that's one thing I wanted to say too, regarding, would I ever go anywhere without hunting, as far as traveling or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I would, but I am a nature lover, and that's what my roots are. And that's probably the reason why I love hunting so much.
And when you get to travel these places, like, yeah, I'm drawn to nature as well. Like, I don't want to travel to a place, like, the city doesn't get me excited. I don't think it's pretty. It doesn't do anything for me. It's like going out to nice dinner. It just doesn't do it for me. I'm just not a city guy. And so when I travel someplace, like, I want to see the most remote country that it has. Like, that's like the true beauty of the place that I'm traveling towards. And it is just different. It's like, yeah, I love to backpack, and I love critters. I love viewing them. but it gives me like a purpose too. It's like bow hunting pushes me so far in the mountains, farther than anything else has. It's like you really have like this goal or this challenge in front of you, and to hunt a mule deer, elk, or red stag, or whatever it is. Like, man, I will just run myself ragged trying to create an opportunity, way more so than I would backpacking into a spot. It like really gives me a purpose. And it is like, you talked about an intimate experience in nature. Like that bow hunting is the most intimate, the predator prey. It does come back to our roots. And so, it's like I can backpack, but I'm usually in there scouting for bow hunting, or, I'm training to get in shape for bow hunting, or I'm bow hunting. Like, and that's what drives me to put on more miles and more peaks and more elevation. It's just something about it that's just grabbed hold of me that I can't get rid of. And yeah, I don't need to kill an animal on every hunt. I don't, I go scouting for huge backpacking missions. I love viewing animals. It's like it's bear season right now. Like I'll look in glass and watch way more bears than I'll ever stalk or shoot at. And I love that. But it is like that inner drive that like really motivates me, that gets me out of bed or gets me into the mountains to go try to arrow something. Like the enjoyment of bow hunting for me has like really grabbed a hold of me, as well as being a nature lover. But
Yep. No, it's all good. I definitely love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way for sure. We're lucky to be able to do what we love to do, and that's the beauty of America, right? I mean, we have that ability to, if you want something bad enough, you can go out there and get it if you have the work ethic. And I believe too, I mean, there's a lot of things in the news these days, and that, the American dream's over and this and that. And I do believe it's become a little bit harder to achieve, but yeah, it's still achievable, and it's still something that if you want to put the effort into, you can go out and do it. You can go be whoever you want to be. How resourceful are you? All these things that take us right back to bow hunting. I mean, I tell you what, anything in life, any discipline, anything, I can relate it to bow hunting. Maybe that's the obsession, is if we can relate about any experience in life or any activity to life to bow hunting, then you're obsessed with it. Maybe that's a fault too.
Well, it's definitely a fault I'll take, because I love it and definitely drives me to be better. So yeah, no. Well, good, man. I'm so glad you had a good trip back stateside. So really fun to catch up to you and hear some stories about your red stag. Great stags, by the way, man. That one with the tops that you killed in the open country there was a beautiful one. And then I love that brush 5 that you killed. You did really well over there, man. I'm glad you had a great trip. It looked like a ton of fun.
And it was exciting, and some of the best hunts I've had in a while. Just the stalks and playing cat and mouse in the jungle, and just perfect shots, and all those arrows fell so true. And when you're hunting the jungle like that, it is nice. I mean, 30-yard shots, chip shots, and shooting through windows. And I mean, I could go on and on about it, but the cool thing too, or the fun part, was I hunted with a couple new people over there too. The one guy that was running the camera for me, he's an editor for that NZ Hunter magazine, but using those evolution hides. Like I know the Australia guys are the same way, but they like their single bevel, like little small cut diameter broadheads that are, could penetrate an elephant. And then you bring over, the evolution hide, the expandable, and these red deer, they run 30 yards and tip over, and they're like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And so, like, yeah, just the shots and the recovery, just so clean, just clean bow hunting, and that makes the experience too. And that's, what, as bow hunters we celebrate, are those quick, clean kills and short track jobs. I mean, that's huge for us. And it was fun sharing that with some of the guys over there. And I tell you what, I think I got them addicted to evolution hides. I left about 10 of them there with those guys to use, but they're believers now, that's for sure.
Yeah, my Australia buddies just placed a big order. I shipped it over to them. So yeah, they were definitely pretty impressed with those things and their operation. So yeah, it's a great head. And I know I've got my quiver all loaded up. It's bear season now. I've got some good early spots. And for me, like, I've killed a bunch of good bears. He's got to be a pretty good bear to get me excited. But there too, I'm looking for the adventure, and so backpacking way into a spot where access has got closed down. I know there's a bunch of good bears in there, and yeah, I'm gonna go give it a weekend rally in there and sleep out and go see if I can't find one and start getting after these things. So I know I'm pumped. I sure do love that we can have some really good springtime bow hunting. It definitely helps sharpen the skills. So yeah, I've been getting all my gear ready and logistics, and have my wife drop me off and leave a truck at another spot. And so yeah, it should be pretty fun anyway. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, really good to catch up to you, Dan. It's been a couple weeks as you've been gone, and so yeah, just nice to hear your stories, and pumped for you, man. Good job on those red deer, and yeah, let's keep after it and catch up with you soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks, buddy.